Have you ever heard a story that stuck with you for years? Not because it was a great movie or an internet creepypasta, but because it actually happened, or at least enough people swear it did. Tonight's stories aren't urban legends someone made up on Reddit last week. These are cases that have been investigated by police officers, doctors, priests, journalists, and paranormal researchers. Some inspired blockbuster horror movies, others terrified entire towns. And decades later, no one has been able to give a clear explanation for what really happened. Whether you believe in ghosts, demons, or something we simply don't understand yet, these stories continue to haunt everyone who comes across them. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into true horror stories that still haunt people today. The Demon House. Imagine moving into a normal looking house, only to discover that your children are talking to invisible people, and before long, doctors, police officers, and even social workers begin witnessing things they can't explain. That was the nightmare of Latoya Ammons and her family in Gary, Indiana. It all started shortly after they moved into the house in 2011. At first, it seemed harmless. They heard footsteps walking through empty rooms, doors opened on their own, strange buzzing flies filled the house, even during freezing winter weather when flies shouldn't have been alive. Then things became much darker. Latoya claimed her children started behaving in terrifying ways. One of them would growl at people, another would speak in strange voices. The youngest child reportedly claimed that an old woman would sit beside his bed every single night. Family believed they were being haunted. But here's where the story becomes disturbing. A nurse, a doctor, police officers, and employees from Child Protective Services all became involved after the children were taken to the hospital. According to official reports, one of the boys allegedly walked backward up a hospital wall before flipping over and landing on his feet. Several witnesses later claimed they saw it happen. Skeptics argue that memories became exaggerated over time. Others believe stress and mental health played a role. Still, the case became so famous that paranormal investigator Zach Bagans later bought the house to investigate it himself. He claimed the experiences inside were so disturbing that he eventually decided to demolish the entire building. Whether you believe every detail or not, one thing is certain. Very few haunted houses stories involve police reports, medical professionals, and government employees all connected to the same case. Even today, the Demon House remains one of America's most controversial paranormal mysteries. The Black Monk of Pontefract. If you asked people in England to name the country's most terrifying ghost, many would probably mention one name, the Black Monk. The story takes place in Pontefract, West Yorkshire during 1960s. The Pritchard family had just moved into what seemed like an ordinary house. Then the activity began. Small objects started flying across rooms without anyone touching them. Pictures ripped themselves off the walls. Furniture slid across the floor. Water mysteriously dripped from ceilings that had no leaks. At first, they assumed someone was playing tricks. But then the events became impossible to ignore. One night, the family claimed they saw a tall, shadowy figure dressed in black robes standing silently inside the house. Then came the attacks. Members of the family reported being scratched, slapped, and even being pushed by something they couldn't see. One of the daughters claimed invisible hands wrapped around her throat while she slept. Neighbors witnessed objects moving by themselves. Police officers visited the house. Journalists investigated. Even professional photographers tried documenting the strange events. The spirit eventually became known as the Black Monk because local legends suggested the lands once belonged to the medieval monastery. No one ever proved the haunting was real, but more than 60 years has gone by. But the Black Monk remains one of the Britain's most famous paranormal cases, with investigators still debating what truly happened inside that ordinary looking house. Sometimes the scariest places don't look haunted at all. The Bell Witch. Long before horror movies existed, before ghost hunting shows, before anyone carried cameras in their pockets, there was a family living on a quiet farm in Tennessee whose story became one of the oldest supernatural legends in American history. The Bell family first noticed something strange in the early 1800s. It began with unexplained knocking on walls, then scratching sounds, then whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Eventually, those whispers turned into a voice, not a vague sound, a clear voice that spoke directly to the members of the family. It answered questions, it laughed, it sang songs, and sometimes it threatened them. The spirit became known as the Bell Witch. The family's youngest daughter, Betsy Bell, appeared to suffer the most. She claimed something invisible pulled her hair, slapped her face, and pinned her to the bed while she screamed for help. Neighbors came to witness the strange events for themselves. Some reportedly heard the mysterious voice. Others claimed the unseen presence knew private information that nobody outside the family should have known. The legend became so widespread that even future US President Andrew Jackson was said to have visited the Bell farm. According to the famous story, strange paranormal activity occurred during his stay, causing him to leave early while supposedly saying he'd rather fight an entire army than deal with the Bellwitch again. Whether Jackson actually said those words is still debated, but the legend has survived over 200 years. The Bellwitch remains one of America's oldest and most famous ghost stories, attracting thousands of visitors every year who hope or fear that legend might still be alive. The Sally House. If dolls scare you, children laughing in empty rooms make your skin crawl, or you've ever felt uneasy walking past an abandoned nursery, this next story will stay with you. The Sally House sits in Atchison, Kansas. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary family home, but according to the people who've lived there, it's anything but ordinary. The haunting became famous in the early 1990s after a young couple, Deborah and Tony Pickman, moved in. Almost immediately, Tony began experiencing strange scratches appearing on his body, not tiny marks, deep cuts, sometimes overnight, sometimes while he was fully awake. The couple also reported hearing a little girl laughing inside empty rooms. Lights flickered constantly. Objects disappeared and later showed up somewhere completely different. Then came the sightings. Several visitors claimed they saw a small girl standing in hallways before suddenly disappearing. Psychics later claimed the spirit belonged to a young girl named Sally who had supposedly died during a botched medical procedure. Here's the strange part. No historical evidence has ever confirmed that a girl named Sally actually died there. Yet, that hasn't stopped hundreds of visitors from reporting similar experiences over the years. Paranormal investigators continue visiting the house today. Many leave convinced something is there. Others walk away believing the stories are fueled by suggestion and expectation. But everyone agrees on one thing: spend a single night inside the Sally house, and sleep doesn't come easy. The Smurr family haunting. By the time Jack and Janet Smurr moved into their duplex in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, they thought life was finally starting to settle down. They had children, steady jobs, and a home they could call their own. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough. Then the house changed. It started with little things. A radio would suddenly blast at full volume in the middle of the night. Lights flickered constantly. The family dog refused to enter certain rooms and would bark into empty corners as if someone or something was standing there. At first, they laughed it off. Maybe the wiring was old, maybe the house was settling. But before long, everyone in the family was experiencing things they couldn't explain. Furniture would shake on its own, cabinets slammed shut without warning, foul odors would suddenly fill entire rooms before disappearing just as quickly. Family members claimed they heard heavy footsteps walking upstairs when no one was there. The activity became impossible to ignore. Jack later claimed he was attacked several times by an invisible force. He described being pushed to the ground by something he didn't see. Janet reported waking up to a terrifying feeling that someone was standing beside her bed watching her sleep. Then came the whispers. The family said they heard voices calling their names from empty rooms. Sometimes the voices sounded familiar. Other times they sounded angry, almost as if whatever was inside the house wanted them gone. The story attracted national attention. News crews arrived. Paranormal investigators visited. Even famous demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren became involved. After spending time in the house, the Warrens believed the family was dealing with multiple spirits, including what they described as a powerful demonic entity. Several exorcisms and blessings were reportedly performed over the years. Some people believed every word. Others argued that stress, publicity, and media had exaggerated the story. But the Smurls never changed their account. Even decades later, they insisted the nightmare was real. Whether you believe in demons or not, imagine living in a house where every creak, every whisper, and every shadow slowly convinces you that you're no longer alone. For the next part of this video, continue watching on my channel. Subscribe for more such videos.